Garoppolo. Thrown down. Brian Burns gets there. Spider-Man.
What a pass rush by Burns. See how quickly he got to the edge and got
This is Desmond Johnson on the Bleav and Carolina Panthers podcast, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you Bleav? If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate the show on iTunes. We're available in your favorite directories: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can also find us at Bleav.com and at Bleav Podcast on Twitter.
I was going to play like Happy Days Are Here Again or something like that, but this game is it's kind of a shock, but not really. Welcome to Bleav in Carolina Panthers, emergency edition episode live here on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel and the Bleav Podcast Network. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined by Sports Illustrated Panthers beat writer Schuyler, Callihan. Panthers all-time leading rusher Jonathan Stewart will be in shortly. If you are not living under a rock, if you're a Panthers fan, you're already aware of the situation. Just came down from the front office. Carolina Panthers relieved Frank Reich of his duties as head coach after 11 games in the 2023 season. The Panthers are off to their worst start of all time at 1-10 after a 17-10 defeat of the defeat by the hands of the Tennessee Titans and rookie quarterback Will Levis, who we could have drafted at 9. Schuyler, your initial thoughts here. We kind of thought that this could happen. You actually mentioned this last week, that it wasn't going to happen last week due to the Thanksgiving holiday and some events they had planned around different things around the city, but that if it could go down, this would be the week to start keeping an eye on it. And lo and behold, everything you said pretty much went down.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't going to happen during last week. You had the Thanksgiving stuff going on, and you have the Thanksgiving day off for the team. That means if you would have done this last week, you're bringing in the guys on Thanksgiving Day, and you don't want to do that unless you're actually playing a game on Thanksgiving Day. So I looked at this is really the first kind of test, if you will, to see if Tepper would make a move, because it's a winnable game, one of the very few that they have left on the schedule. And if it was going to be the same story that we've seen the previous 10 weeks, yeah, then you could probably start to sense that this was going to come to a halt at some point. And like I told you before we hopped on here, I don't know that firing Frank was a bad idea. I think you can kind of tell that this was not going to work, but I maybe would have given it another week or two. And the only reason I say that is, look, because you probably know that this was going to happen, but you want to be damn sure, right? Like you're already paying money to Matt Rule. You're going to be paying money to Frank Reich. You're going to be paying money for a new head coach. You want to make sure that this is the right move. And I do think it is, but I don't know. I don't want to, split hairs here and say a week or two would make a difference in the opinion of it. But I think you could see all along, as we've been talking here on the show, this was just not a good fit from start to finish. And I think a lot of it has to do with Scott Fitterer too, who I think his job could be in jeopardy as well.
Why is he still here? Why is he still here?
Well, I mean, I think with him, you're not really going to see a change in the on-field results with a firing of Scott Fitterer right now, because someone has to manage this team the rest of the way in terms of all the moves that they have to make with the practice squad, elevating guys. No one else is going to really know the ins and outs of that and what this team needs better than Scott Fitterer. I mean, you can make an argument, but he's going to be the guy, I would assume. Again, I could be wrong here, but I would assume he will see the end of the season. I would be shocked if he's still the GM by the time the Panthers are on the clock in the second round of the 2024 NFL draft.
Yeah, I don't think it looks good for Fitterer either. And matter of fact, I look at it like he'll probably be gone at that Black Monday right at the end of the season. They'll probably let him go right there. Let him stay the rest of the year, manage the roster, that kind of thing. But he's pretty much a dead man walking, I would think, at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad look. If you fire a coach, again, Matt Rule was not Scott Fitterer's guy. So you can give him a pass for that. But for this, I mean, he was a part of the hiring process. He was the guy that said last year that one of the reasons why they were so confident in moving up to get Bryce Young was because they weren't going to be picking anywhere near the top 10 anymore. Well, you say that and you follow it up with a 1-10 record. There's no walking that back. So when you say stuff like that, you better deliver. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with this whole hire is they did not cater to what Frank Reich does well with the spread offense. You bringing in a spread guy to run his offense with a power run scheme. And that's just not going to work. We saw it in the first 4 or 5 games last year with Matt Rule when they tried to do this stuff with Baker Mayfield, and it didn't work. They switched their mindset to let's just run the damn ball, and it worked. Again, like I said last week, I don't think this is an indictment on the offensive line because I think they are actually really decent offensive linemen. They're just playing in the wrong damn system. And when you play in the wrong damn system, your deficiencies are going to show, and you're going to look like you're bad. You're going to put bad stuff on tape. I feel for those guys up front. I feel for the guys that are just not put in the position to succeed, a.k.a. Bryce Young. So we'll see it. That's the big part here. Who's going to be that guy to come in and fix this thing with Bryce Young?
I almost feel like it's on the roster already. Like, I feel like Ejiro Evero should be the next head coach. And I feel like they didn't make him the interim head coach, so they did not repeat the steps that they made last year. Like, if they say they had promoted him to interim head coach, you have the exact same situation you had last year with Steve Wilks as interim. Say they turn around these 6 games and say they win 4 of them and they just look a completely different team or whatnot. But then you don't hire him, you hire somebody else outside. Literally is the exact same scenario from last year. Somewhere Steve Wilks is sitting back in San Francisco with a smirk on his face right now, just kind of shaking his head like, yep.
Or a sign of relief that he's not dealing.
Yeah, that he's not there. Yeah, that could be too. But I still feel like if Wilks was here, Foreman's probably still here. They're probably running that same downhill rushing attack. You probably don't have Bryce Young. You probably do have Christian McCaffrey. You probably definitely still have DJ Moore. And you probably have Andy Dalton as your quarterback, more than likely, or someone in that vein. And you're probably positioning yourself to maybe move up this year in the draft to pick, because there's probably a better quarterback class, I would say, this year coming out than last year. But all that's in hindsight. Now, do you think that the upcoming coach, and for those who don't know, Chris Tabor, the special teams coach, is going to be the interim. Jim Caldwell's coming down from the tower in the castle to help call plays, I guess, with Thomas Brown, who has been given back play calling abilities. Let's just say Thomas Brown didn't do that much better either when he was calling plays, which makes me wonder, did Frank still kind of have a say over? It sounded like he didn't, that it was really Thomas had free reign to call whatever he wanted. Do you think the offense is going to change that much between what we've seen and now?
You can't polish a turd, man. I mean,
no.
What you are by week 11 is what you are by week 11 or 12 or whatever part of the season we're in. You are not going to change dramatically at this point. You are what you are. I think it could certainly change how a game is called, but the effectiveness and the execution of it's not going to change. It's the same guys running the same stuff. To me, I think what it boils down to is not only the scheme fit, but I think the clash in offensive philosophies, because, again, you have Frank Reich, who's a true spread it out offensive mind. You have not Sean McVay, but you have Thomas Brown, who comes from that Sean McVay tree, which is a lot of pre-snap motion, post-snap movement, where it's a lot of different things that the defense has to put their eyes on. And then you have James Campen, who has been in some different offenses, but last year really excelled, again, in that downhill style. So you have 3 different kind of offensive backgrounds trying to formulate one that works. And that's just not going to happen. So I don't know what Tepper's going to be looking for in this next coaching staff or this next hire, but he has to make damn sure that whoever it is, you're going to have coaches that are on the same page. On paper, this coaching staff looked like an all-star, rock star type staff that had no chance of doing anything wrong or anywhere coming close to this.
Yeah.
But when you have those differences of opinion, and I think, as Stu alluded to last week, the too many cooks in the kitchen phrase, this is what can happen.
And now you're left with a situation where you still don't have protection for Bryce Young. You still don't have any players really on offense. And
who do you replace?
Really good.
Who do you replace on the offense line? Like, if you seriously think about it, you invested a first-round pick in Ike Ekwonu. He's not going anywhere.
No.
Maybe he goes to the left guard, which I've been saying for a while.
Yeah.
But you signed Bozeman to a multi-year deal. Taylor Moton's not going anywhere. Austin Corbett, maybe they move off of him because of the injuries. But, I mean, who do you replace up there? It's almost like you have to go back to that philosophy that they had last year and sprinkle in some spread stuff. I don't know who that offensive coach is going to be.
I'm still thinking about them cutting Calvin Throckmorton. Like, you cut him. He started 7 games, and then you didn't demote him. You cut him. Like you literally was like, your G code doesn't work.
Off the roster.
Yeah. And now literally the offensive line looks worse. Like it looks worse than it did when he was starting at left guard or whatever. And I'm just sitting here like, what did he do to cause them to cut him? And then Frank's comments about it were weird after, because he was like, oh, well, he may be back on the roster next week or in 2 weeks or whatnot. It's almost like they were playing with some of the players in terms of like, oh, well, nobody's gonna want that guy. We can easily swing back around and bring him back. And now he's playing in Indy, so they can't even go get him. The offensive line, I don't think can be fixed in this offseason with what they're running, unless they just decide to run the ball 40 times and let them go back to what they were doing last year, which could very well be a way to save Bryce. Because we asked this question last week: would you bench Bryce Young with everything going on? And both of you guys were like, no, let him keep playing, let him take his lumps. My dude is getting like, he has no pocket pressure. That point. When it comes to him getting sacked from the blind side, he has no idea it's coming. Like he literally has no idea. And Rex Ryan made a great point on Get Up this morning when the news dropped. He was like, he's never been a fan of Bryce Young. And now his size is starting to come back into the conversation again, not because of him being too small to play, but more worried about him and durability because of all the sacks that he's taking. And Rex Ryan was like, he sees people all the time comparing Bryce Young to Kyler Murray. And he's like, that's not fair. Kyler Murray is short. Kyler Murray is not small. Kyler Murray is stout, built, and more athletic and faster, way faster than Bryce Young. Yeah. Bryce Young can't outrun these defensive ends. Like he can't outrun them. Like they are running him. These are 295-pound, 6'5" dudes. Now, granted, from the preseason when we were looking at all those 4.4s or whatever from these defensive ends or whatnot, those are the dudes with the 4.3s or whatever. They're chasing Bryce Young down. Like he's not even hitting the edge. He's taking 3-4 steps out the pocket and getting sacked.
The one thing I also want to bring up, and again, I don't think this was necessarily the case, but we've seen a lot of national people talk about this throughout the year, in that Frank was more in the CJ Stroud camp than the Bryce Young camp.
Yep.
If that were to be true, my goodness, man, like you fire a guy who was essentially forced to take a guy that he didn't really necessarily think was the guy at quarterback. Like that's tough. But again, I don't know that was the case. I don't want to speculate about that, but I do, Des, want you to bring up the article that I did this morning, if you can, my Monday morning thoughts on Scott Fitterer. On there toward the bottom, there's 3 trades that Fitterer made that have completely changed this roster over the last couple of years.
I know 2 of them.
And if we can get them pulled up, you can see how crazy these deals are. Even at the time when they happen, you're kind of like, what are they doing? But when you go back and you look at them, it is swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss. And to me, 3 strikes, you're out, pal. Like it's not good. It's not good looking for Scott Fitterer.
What's the title of the one I'm looking for? Is it Everything That Went Wrong During Frank Reich's short
Monday morning thoughts? Scott Fitterer's doing.
While I'm pulling that, the one and only Jonathan Stewart joins us here on the Bleav in Panthers podcast. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good morning, sir.
We've kind of thought the past 3 weeks or so that we might have an episode like this. We didn't know when it was going to drop, but
we were somewhat prepared.
But we kind of were prepared. We were a little. I even said it in our group chat last night. I was like, "Yo, y'all gonna be ready to do one on Monday if this goes down?" Because I was telling Schuyler, Stu, I couldn't even watch that game after the first drive, first quarter, when they went for that 3rd and 1 and did that weird backwards pass, like whatever that was, that got blown up in the backfield. I literally threw my hands up in the living room and looked at my wife and was like, I'm going to go DoorDash. I'm not going to sit here and watch this. I left and DoorDash and listened to the radio call with Luke Kuechly and Anish Shroff so I could hear that. And I listened to that call and I'm thinking, this is the exact same game that we've seen the past 2 months. Like it's the same game, literally. Like we're going to give them a turnover. That's going to be the difference in the game. That's exactly what happened. It's going to be like a 1-possession game in the 4th quarter. That's exactly what happened. Bryce is going to run for his life, get sacked probably at least 4 times. That's exactly what happened. And like no 100-yard rusher. It's the same stuff. So, and then the difference was Frank started throwing people under the bus in the post game defense. He threw DJ Chark under the bus, and Chark actually said something back, and that hit Twitter. When I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, the players are starting to like push back against the play calling. That's the beginning of the end. As a former player, Stu, you've been in these situations before where you've had regimes come in and out as a Panther, what are the players going through right now? Like, what do you feel like the locker room is? Is it joy, relief? Is it sadness? Like, what do you think's going on?
I mean, I would say, a mixture of none of it. Really, it's you, right now you're 1-10, right? And this is your job, right? Like, guys got contracts, guys are playing, their dream job. Their mindset has to be somewhere along the lines of, well, if that's not a message sent, I don't know who that message is for, what's happening, but all I know is I don't want to be the next guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, this is a performance-based business. If you're not performing, you got to go, and that's that's just how it is around the whole entire league. Every professional sports organization goes through this, and for the Carolina Panthers, we've been in this spell for years now, where and I think honestly, bro, you have to give credit to the coaching and the hiring that has been done around the league. Look at Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin. I mean, this is a guy that has had sustained success for a very long period of time. That is hard to do, let alone a first-year head coach coming into a situation like Frank Reich. I feel bad for him, man. He's a good guy. Met him several times, talked to him. And at the end of the day, like, he was streaming, he was basically paddling a boat upstream.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
it was not like
hard. It's hard. It's hard to do. So I mean, like, if you're a player, man, you're getting your head down and you're just doing the work. Chop your wood, carry the water every single day. That's the mentality. That's the focus. And I'm pretty sure there's definitely some guys on the team that's on the roster that doesn't have a solidified spot. So, I mean, there's probably a lot of fear, what I'm saying, for a lot of guys as far as, well, Frank brought me here, or Frank likes me. There's a lot of, doubt right now for sure in that locker room. But that's Monday. Tuesday goes by, your day off. Wednesday, you're back to work. It's work as usual. You got a job to do, you got a job to keep, and you got to go out there and display why you need to be part of that winning solution, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
If you're just joining us here on a special edition of Bleav in Carolina Panthers live here on the Bleav Podcast Network and the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel, so hit that subscribe button, by the way. Frank Reich released as head coach of the Carolina Panthers early Monday morning. David Tepper, owner of the Panthers, put out a statement. Special teams coach Chris Tabor is going to be the interim head coach. Jim Caldwell's coming down from the tower or wherever he's been all year to help assist Thomas Brown, who will resume offensive play calling duties after having it taken away after 3 games before that. I did find Schuyler's article here. Go check this out under the All Panthers SI banner, Monday Morning Thoughts. Basically, this is it reset on me. This is basically what's going on here. I think it's trying to pull it.
We're doing that real quick. Not huge news or anything, but just something to keep your ears out on for tomorrow. David Tepper is going to talk at 10:30 in the morning.
Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, because I didn't expect to hear from him at all.
We did hear from him last year. I think it was actually the day of. No. It was the following day. It was the following day after Matt got fired. Yeah.
We'll get to Kellen in the comments. Thanks to everybody that's checking us out. Ask Stu, what do you think about Fit in his situation? We're gonna get to Scott Fitter here in just a bit. Don't you worry. We're gonna get to Scott. I don't think he's gonna be here much longer either.
I do gotta run here in a minute. But
okay.
But I mean, with Scott Fitterer, man, I mean, again, it's hard. It's a hard job. It's a hard job to get the right pieces into position, to give yourself a fighting chance. And I mean, there's a lot of elements out the gate. Schuyler, Callihan gave us the reasons why the Panthers weren't going to be successful last year because of depth. We had depth issues going into the situation and going into the season.
We ignored
them.
And
so, yeah. And so,
we don't want to hear that nonsense.
We didn't want to hear it. We wanted it to be all, a candy shop.
Yeah.
But
he was right.
But the truth of the matter is, man, like, it doesn't happen overnight, doesn't happen over a year. But I think right now, like, Tepper sees the situation where, he went and got his guy and gave up a lot, to get his guy. So in order to protect that guy, you have to do probably, the most unpopular decision, which is let go your head coach midway through the season. And a lot of people are going to have, their say about that and whatnot, but it's a tough business out there. And this is the NFL is what it is for a reason. And because guys, fans expect performance and, not just a bad performance. They expect, competitive performance. The defense, man, they've been playing lights out, giving, their team a chance to win.
Yeah.
And, week in and week out, it's kind of hard to ignore, what's going on the offensive side of the ball. We have offensive lineman depth issues that we've been hanging on for the whole season. Guys in Bryce Young's face, separation for the receivers, the run game. We have talented running backs, but the offensive line, again, if you can't get a push, you can't create seams, or guys can't gel together. I mean, I think I read an article where there was like 7 to 8 different lineups this year at the offensive line position. So I mean, you talk about chemistry. These guys are, probably aren't bad at what they do. It just takes rhythm. It takes tempo. It takes a lot of things for guys to really gel and move like a machine. That's basically what you want your offensive line to do, is move like a machine. But if there's parts missing here, parts missing there, you don't get to spend a lot of time with the guy that you're like legitimately, going to war with, for 60 something plays. It's hard to really figure out, the remedy, the way about going about your offense. And I mean, it was like I said, you're paddling a boat upstream out the gate. It's hard to do, especially when you have guys coming in and out, with injuries. So I mean, it's tough, man. Feel bad for Frank. Right now the Panthers locker room have to lock arms and just, right now, like I said, you're building character. You're building a callus. Right now, you're going to have to do things that you don't want to do as an organization. And it sucks. And it sucks to see for fans, because it's like, hey, I was hoping on this season to, be fun or whatever. But I mean, there's other things to worry about in this world than, what the Panthers are doing wrong.
Even at 1-10, the Panthers are still like 4 games out of first place or something in the NFC South. Like, I mean, like literally, that's the thing that hurts the most. It's like they could have just got some of this together, like, and we just
got 3 divisional games coming up too. So
yeah, they still could have the division, which is nuts. So so before Stu has to get out of here, I did want to hit off Schuyler's thing here to hit these 3 trades, because looking back now in hindsight, now that Frank's gone, I don't think he was set up for success to begin with. And to be honest, we did not have the collateral to trade up to number 1 when we did it, because now I think we may have set ourselves back another year or two because of what happened. And these trades right here, trade number 1, Jets received the 2021 6th-round pick, a 2022 2nd-round pick, and a 2022 4th-round pick. The Panthers get Sam Darnold out of that. Sam Darnold's no longer on the roster. I'm not sure what the Jets did with that 2nd round pick and that 4th round
Brees
pick from
Hall,
last year.
I Bleav, is Brees Hall.
Oh man. Okay, so they got Brees Hall with that pick. Trade number 2, 49ers received Christian McCaffrey. Panthers received 2023 2nd round pick, 2023 3rd round pick, 2023 4th round pick, 2024 5th round pick. So we've already spent all that collateral or sent it off to someplace else, except for the 5th round pick that we got from
that trade was, I think it's in the analysis below. I think they sent 2 of those to Pittsburgh to trade up to get DJ Johnson, who has been whatever, and then the other one in the 2nd rounder went to Chicago for Bryce.
Okay, so we didn't even use those. We used them to move up. We didn't really use them for depth, which is the problem with this team right now. And you did have it written down right here. Trade number 3, Bears received number 9 overall pick in 2023, 2023 2nd round pick, 2024 1st round pick, 2025 2025 2nd round pick, and wide receiver DJ Moore. Why in the world is DJ Moore in this draft? I mean, this trade. Like, I'm sitting here looking at it now. All of that to move up 8 spots.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. And you're moving up. I hate to say it, guys. You're moving up for Bryce Young. And the one thing that bothered us about him preseason and before they picked him is starting to come back around again. It's the size. It's not so much I feel like he's too small to play in the NFL. That's not the issue. Rex Ryan made this point. We were talking about it before, Schuyler, that he sees the comparison to Kyler Murray and Bryce Young all the time. Kyler Murray is short, but he is not small. Kyler Murray is stocky. He's got like a baseball player body, in terms of being able, his hips and everything. And he's probably
Kyler Murray's like a little hamster.
Yeah, he's 3 times faster than Bryce Young. This is even after tearing an ACL. He looks even faster now than he was before he got hurt. So
he looks real explosive.
Bryce cannot outrun anyone. Like, it's starting to get to a point where it's a problem, where when you're watching it on TV and you see that dude coming from the left side, Icky, when you see him coming from that side, and Bryce has not even turned to look that way, like, for starters, I'm starting to get worried that Bryce is not even anticipating it 11 games in. Like, you've been hit enough times from that direction where that's the first place I'm looking. As soon as the ball is snapped, I'm looking over there at Icky Saucy. Hey, you good over there? Like, what's going on over there? Before I even do anything, because it's all coming from over there. It feels like when he feels it and he steps out the pocket a little bit, he takes about 3 steps and gets ran down. You remember in the preseason, Stu, when we were talking about all these 4-4 defensive ends that were coming out or whatever, and we were like, where are these dudes coming from? They are chasing Bryce Young down in the backfield. He has no way to get out. Like, it's a lot of it's designed.
Tough sledding.
Do you think this is going to change with Thomas Brown calling the plays? Like, is this basically the same playbook? Like, how does that work?
Man, I think at the end of the day, really and truly, like, again, I feel bad. I feel bad for Bryce. I feel bad for the players, but like, players play, coaches coach. And what sucks is that they're in a predicament where they have a lot of injuries on offense, and it's kind of hard. It's going to be hard to climb out of that. Now, offensively, like play calling, I don't know if you just kind of like go back to the drawing board and say to yourself, okay, this is who I am as an offensive coordinator or a coach. I need to like create some other balance to put my guys in position to win, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's, something that you're not accustomed to as a coach. But whatever it is, you got 6 games left. Is it 6 games left?
Yeah. There's 6 left.
Or 5.
What are we? We're 1 and 10.
1 and 10.
There's 17 games.
Yeah.
There's 6 left. Yeah.
So like
1 and 10
right now, like everyone's playing and coaching for their job. So, and that's the mindset you got to have anyway, whether you're 13-0 or 0-13. Every day you're coaching and playing for your job. And right now, like, is it going to get better? It can. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got a lot of division games. And I mean, I think our division as a whole is the weaker division within the NFL. So, like, maybe there's, an opportunity for us to be the Las Vegas Raiders right now. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, before the Raiders, started winning, they were looking bad too. Garoppolo back there looking all strange. And then all of a sudden, they took a shift. And yeah, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I mean, playing, the Super Bowl team, they put up numbers, they put up what they got to put up to be competitive. Having their fans at least going back home saying, well, it was a competitive game at least, I don't know, man. I think our defense is doing enough, and all it takes is for one guy. I mean, we need one of them receivers to just click. Like when you catch the ball, break a tackle, make somebody miss, get upfield. You gotta figure out a way to do something special. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the elements that we miss out on, especially we're going into a game where they just double Thielen. That gives you that. If I'm a receiver or somebody or a shifty running back, man, give me the ball in space because they got two guys over there. Right now you know what I'm saying? So
I've been waiting on that to happen.
You gotta be opportunistic as a player in this organization and make a case of why you need to stay and why you are part of the winning recipe.
I've been waiting on a defense to be like, you know what? If we just double Adam Thielen, they can't really do a whole lot of anything. And it took about 2-3 weeks, but finally Tennessee, and actually kind of did a little bit last week. The Cowboys kind of did a little bit, but they just took him out. And once they took Thielen out, there's no dude on the offense that's like a separator, a game changer, like somebody that.
And I feel like it just seems like the NFL is full of elite players. You're in the NFL for a reason, period. We got to unlock these players and really see, hey, what can you do? Whatever you feel like you be doing in practice, do that in the game. It almost seems like when we're watching these games, we're watching these guys in a box. That's what it really we're watching them in a box and we know what's coming. You know what I'm saying? Offensive line, we're depending too much on them. I don't know what it is, but we got to unlock these guys and let them go out there and play football.
James Woodring says the players found out by the media.
Oof.
I don't know if that's true or not, but if that is true, that's
they were trying to. I think it was Mike K. Charlotte Observer. He said something about that they were trying to inform the players, but the news just got out before. But I mean, the thing I hate about it is, again, a lot of these guys are going through this for the second time in 2 years, and for Bryce, you go through technically 4 changes of the hands in terms of the offense. And in your rookie season, you've got 8 or 9 different, whatever Stu said, how many different combinations up front of the offensive line. And it's a bad rookie year. And honestly, it reminds me a lot of Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, where he had so many struggles, the Urban Meyer thing. It's a mess, but look how they came out of it. They got the right coach. They got the right players around them. And now they're one of the better teams in the AFC. So I think brighter days are ahead, but it may take a little bit longer just because you don't have that first round pick that may end up being the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft.
And I think really the rest of the season is important for the Panthers because you talk about free agency, right?
Yeah.
If right now, again, if I'm a player too, and I know I'm going to come back. I know I'm going to be here next year, or I want to be here next year. I'm trying to put on a show for the rest of the league, for the rest of the guys that will be free agents next year. Hey, bro, come to the Panthers.
Does this change the situation in your mind with Brian Burns? Do you entertain trading him now?
I still don't. But again, if you're Scott Fitterer and he walks after you had 2 chances to trade him, I mean, that's like the dagger right there. You can't, and I know that decision on Scott will be made way in advance of Burns hitting free agency, but you can't let that happen. And
maybe that's why Fitterer's still here. Now I'm sitting there thinking about it because he's been the main negotiator in these Burns talks. If you take him out of it and have to start fresh with a new guy that's an interim at that, if it's say you promote Dan Morgan to interim GM or whatever,
The other one thing that I've seen a lot of people ask about is why Ejiro Evero isn't going to be the interim. And we'll find out more tomorrow from Tepper. He could have went to EJ and said, "Hey, do you want to be the interim?" And he declined it.
He was like, "No, thank you."
Yeah, it's very possible.
Like, no.
I Bleav, I'm not 100% sure, but I Bleav that was a situation in Denver. So, I mean,
wow. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Think about it. Like, you're auditioning to be a head coach. You don't want yourself fully attached to that. When he gets to this offseason, I guarantee there's still going to be teams that want to interview him to be their head coach. If all he has to attach himself to is what they did defensively, he's still going to look pretty damn good.
Yeah, I don't even know our defense is doing it.
If I'm him, I'm like, yeah, you can take the voodoo with you right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just worry about this defense.
Cash my checks and make sure defense looks good, and then we'll see what happens in the afterwards.
And he's still going to be, I think, somebody that David Tepper is going to want to interview.
Yeah.
And honestly, too, I think has there ever been an interim head coach ever become the head coach? I don't think so.
I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
There has to have been. I just can't think off the top of my head.
Let's see if I can Google it while we're still
always go outside. Because like I said,
Willie Smith, Bryce Young is tougher than a lot of people thought because he is dealing with a lot of heat every game.
Well,
oh gosh, yeah, dude, yeah. He's way stronger mentally than I expected him to be because he's having to deal with this, and he hasn't thrown his offensive line under the bus. He hasn't thrown Frank Reich under the bus. The organization, he could easily at this point. I think we all would understand. Like, man, these dudes got me out here getting killed like every week, and they ain't changing nothing. Like, help me, somebody come help me, please. And he's not doing it.
The one thing we haven't brought up yet, and I want to get Stu's opinion on before he has to roll. This job, how attractive can it be? Because you fired 2 coaches in 2 years, 3 and 5, or 3 and 6, or whatever it is. How attractive can this job be? Because you have a reputation of firing guys on a short leash.
I mean, if you want to be a head coach, you obviously want to go into a good situation, right? I look at the Carolina Panthers and I look at our defense. And I say, well, that's a bright spot. You know what I'm saying? Like special teams. We're doing our thing on special teams. You have a good quarterback in Bryce Young. I'm taking my focus if I get this type of job, if I get the head coaching job, and I'm looking at the offensive line, and you don't even need to replace the whole receiver core. You need one more. You probably need one more guy, a speed guy. And I'm not talking about a guy that can go take a deep route. I'm talking about a guy that can catch the ball,
do stuff after,
and take it to, and when he catches it, he's gone to the house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So a yak guy. And then you just get, and then obviously the offensive line depth. I'm looking, maybe he's defensive backs. You know what I'm saying? Always good to have depth at the defensive back position. So there's not a lot missing. That sounds crazy. So if I'm a head coach, this job isn't I'm not scared to take this job. But I'm more so understanding of the requirement. You're going into this situation saying, well, I better have my hat on straight. You know what I'm saying? Because if not, it is what it is. But if I can go in there and really change this thing, I can really make my resume jump because I can be one of the greatest coaches to ever, step plays in the NFL, coming into the Panthers situation and turning it around.
Fire with a fire extinguisher.
I mean, there's only 32 of these out there. So, I mean, somebody's going to want that job. Obviously, I think it's hard though, because if you're a guy that has never been a head coach before,
David Tepper already has someone in mind. That's why this went down today, so he can get ahead of it. Because he could have let him go through the whole season. We talked about this last week. He's got somebody in mind already that he wants to come in here, and I'm wondering if it's Jim Harbaugh. All the crumbs. Remember, Harbaugh called in last year around this time. Well, Steve Wilkes was like, "Hey, I hear you got a job going on."
Dan Orlovsky said a couple of weeks ago, Bill Belichick already knows where he's going next year.
Oh, that's right. And Bill O'Brien
had a terrific coaching career, one of the best to ever do it, just for my sake, and that I don't have to have these stupid press conferences where he answers with 3 words.
I
Please
got
do not sing Bill Belichick to Carolina.
I can't. That'd be like Coach K deciding to coach North Carolina. Like, to me, like, I can't even wrap my mind around that even occurring. I would rather Jim Harbaugh be hired and they give him GM responsibilities as well. And I know that's something he was trying to avoid with Frank Reich, but I don't know like that worked out either. Jim Harbaugh, I was on this tip last year. Like, Jim Harbaugh can fix all the things we just said that are broken with this team. That's his specialty. That's what he does. He's going to come in and build the offensive line. He's going to build the defensive line. He's going to run the football. He's the dude that's going to come out there with 8-man offensive line package, like jumbo joints, where we're just running the ball down your throat. Like, that's closer to the Panthers' identity that I've grown up with and understood it to be than whatever this is that's been going on the past 10 weeks, because this whole idea of us changing our offensive mentality, it changed what the Panthers are. Like,
what you're looking for is a defensive-minded head coach.
Yes, I want a defensive-minded head coach in here. Like, this whole bringing in Ben Johnson, or
you can bring in you're going to have that portion of the fan base too, that if something happens in DC, they're going to want
Rivera,
Ron back. And I mean, hey, Charlotte sports. I mean, they've done it before. Clifford got fired. He came back 4 years later. Maybe the same thing with Rivera. I mean, I don't think it'd be a wise decision to do.
What's Marty Hurney doing these days? Where's Marty Hurney at?
I think he's still in Washington, or did he get let go at Washington? I think he did.
I don't know, but
all right, fellas, I gotta head out.
Yeah. Hey, Stu stopping in for the live here. We normally go on Tuesdays. We might maybe still go tomorrow. What time
we might still need to go tomorrow.
When is Tepper talking to me?
This news kind of got me all like bunched up. I ain't really get to say too much of anything that I really want to say because it caught me off guard.
Maybe we do a full episode tomorrow night after Tepper's press conference. Well, don't you have Hornets tomorrow night? So we'll figure this out. Because I'm sure Tepper's going to say something. Tepper's going to say something at this press conference.
Keep pounding. That's all you're going to have to do.
Yeah. Like, it's just, this is, I didn't get a chance to ask you guys if you thought the next head coach is on the roster or off the roster. We'll save that for the next episode. But again, this is the day you guys been asking for. And I've been on you, Panther fans, because a lot of times you ask for stuff and you get it, and then you don't like what the result was. Once you get it, you wanted to trade McCaffrey. You wanted to trade up to 1. You were fine with getting Bryce Young. You were fine with trading off DJ Moore. You were fine with all these things. And then once they happen, we protested because it didn't happen the way we wanted it to. Now you've gotten your wish. Frank Reich has been fired. He's been relieved of his duties mid-season. Is this the right thing? Was this the right thing to do? I don't think it could be any worse than keeping him especially after yesterday. If I've checked out of a Panther game and refused to watch it, and I have to actually do umpteenth hours of Panther content like after it, to me, that was the telltale sign for me. I'm like, something's got to change if I'm checking out of it. No telling how many other fans have checked out.
You know what the worst case scenario would be? And I hate to even go this far into the future, but say you get the next year, right? You have your new coach, and this team again is struggling because you don't have that first round pick. Maybe the free agent market is just not attracted to this team because of the struggles that they've had. What if you start next season and you're just as bad? I mean, is that coach going to be on the hot seat too? Like, is this going to become a reoccurring thing where you feel like you're the Cleveland Browns and you're just firing guys left and right? You've got all these different pieces and GMs coming in and out. Like, it's got to come to an end at some point. You've got to find an answer. This is, and we could have argued that last offseason was huge for David Tepper, but he has got to get this hire right. If he doesn't get this hire right, I don't know what the future is for this team. I really, really don't, because it's gonna be a nonstop thing where it's just it's cycled over and over and over again.
Hell, Houston went through 4 head coaches in 4 years, right, before they landed on D'Amico Ryans. So there's a kind of a process to it in today's NFL. But Zach Jose asked, anyway, we can get Kevin Avery from the 4-man rush and Mike Wall, former offensive lineman for the Panthers, to talk about the offensive line on the next podcast. Also, Evero needs to be given a serious consideration as the next head coach. I do agree with that. I'll talk to Kev and see what's up with that. See, maybe we can coordinate that because I do want to talk some more with the offensive line woes and what can be fixed with that. We did have Frank Garcia on a couple episodes ago, and he was talking about this, but that was before the bottom really fell out. There's not a lot of cornerstones here. Thomas Hayes says Harbaugh was buddy last year
under contract. I mean, again, you have Brian Burns, who's still. You don't know what's going to happen with that.
Frankie Lou was unrestricted. Frankie Lou was an unrestricted free agent this offseason too.
And I think that's a good point that you made earlier about, Scott Fitterer being part of the negotiations. Like, if you let him go, what does that mean for Burns and his agent? Like, did they just say, you know what, we're done here? Like,
start over. Like literally, I think they're going to give him. If he was the main guy, so that to me, that tells me a couple things. One, that Brian Burns is considered a cornerstone of the franchise, and they don't want to get rid of him no matter what.
You could franchise tag him with the.
They still can franchise tag him, so they don't necessarily going to lose him for nothing. I forgot this is Derek Brown's 4th season, so like he's about to go into his 5th year next year too. And Derek Brown has been the best defensive player on this team all year. Like, to be honest, like he's been the most consistent. He's gotten better as the year's gone on. I think he's 7 tackles away from breaking his own personal record from last year, and we got 6 games to go. So he's been a monster, and he's grown into what we thought he could be as a top 10 defensive tackle overall pick. The Burns situation, though, I agree. I think that's why Scott Fitterer is still employed. It's because of Brian Burns and not having that contract signed. And I think his job security may be based on whatever gets done there. If they say they get a Brian Burns deal done, it wouldn't surprise me now if they get a Burns deal done in the next 2 weeks. Like if something happens and they decide to go ahead and let's get it in and go.
It's hard to see anything getting done in season because they were so far apart in September. And I don't see how they can make that much ground in 2 months. And especially with Brian being focused on the football stuff. I mean, I know his agent's taking care of a lot of it, but
just give him his money.
Yeah. I mean, you have so many. Again, we could spend a whole 2 hours on every move that Fitterer has made. And and again, I like Fitterer. I think he's a great guy, easy to talk to. And I think throughout the years, as things have happened, as free agency has gone on each year and as the draft happened each year, we kind of looked at all the moves he made and you're like, okay, that seems like a good move. That seems like a good pick, As we get further away from those trades and those free agent signings and draft picks, you're like, what has he really hit on? Frankie Lou is probably the best that he's had. Outside of that,
Thielen,
a lot of swing and missing.
Maybe Thielen at wide receiver. And even then, I don't think his role that grew into what it is now, I don't think that's what they brought him in for. So like that's almost like mistakenly correct. He didn't draft Derek Brown. That was Hurney, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Burns was already here. That was Hurney too. DJ Moore was a Hurney draft pick. He drafted Icky. He drafted.
I don't know if he's a hit or miss. Like
he drafted Bryce.
He passed on, again, I think we said this 2 weeks ago, he passed on Micah Parsons and Pat Surtain to take J.C. Horn.
Yeah, he did.
Who has not been on the field. So,
and those are Micah Parsons is a generational talent that he passed on.
Other teams passed on Parsons too, but like I said, that year, that would have been, in my opinion, you go get the guy to team up with Brian Burns. And, man, they missed out. And they didn't even take the best corner.
You can't, Josh says, in my opinion, you can't go into the next draft with Fitterer. I kind of agree at this point. You can't hire another coach while Fitterer is still here and then decide to fire Fitterer. It's the same pattern you've been doing where you're not letting them both go.
If you're going to start with a new head coach, you got to get a new GM too. That way, because obviously part of this blame is on Fitterer too, but you want to bring in a GM because if you're going to fire Scott in a year, that makes no sense. Just go ahead and do it now.
Do it now.
That way he can have a say in this head coach. And we can finally have some responsibilities here where it's GM does the GM's job, head coach does the head coaching job. And if you think about it, since Tepper's been here, every time he's made a change, the GM and the head coach have not been coming in at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's been one or the other. He switched them and they've never been the one that's been here has had to adapt to whoever's coming in. And that's kind of what's with this. The same way Fitterer was here, you bring in Wright. Fitterer had a say in that hire. You know what I mean? Like he was going through all these candidates with David Tepper. So it feels like Fitterer had more control than Reich did this go around, which makes sense. The general manager should. But eventually the chickens are going to come home to roost. Like eventually there's no one left to point to other than you, Scott Fitter. And that's kind of where we are. And you can't fire David Tepper. So, I mean, I don't know how much he's meddling in whatever. I don't even like the word meddling. That's his team. He owns the team. He reserves the right to, he can go sit in every meeting he wants to, like that doesn't bother me at all. It's his team. He owns it. I don't know if he's necessarily dictating personnel decisions. I feel like he makes suggestions, but he kind of leaves that up to them and they act off those suggestions. Same with Nicole. I don't think they're sitting there like in the office, like we need to go get that player. Let's go get him, like that kind of thing. I don't think that's exactly what's going on. But if you look at Frank Reich from preseason in August to today, like if you put up snapshots side by side, this is clearly a man that has gone through it. Like
didn't Matt Rule have a similar?
I think he did. Yeah.
Too?
And that was over 3.5 years. Like this is over 3 months. Like the dude looks like he's aged 10 years. Like, yeah, I almost feel like Frank Reich is relieved at this point that he's no longer coaching the Panthers. That he stepped in something he wasn't expecting.
This is something that's kind of been talked about a little bit, I think. But back at the introductory press conference last year with Frank, he said that the time away when he got fired from Indy last year, that time at the end of the rest of that season was a good like refresher for him. It was a good just to kind of sit back, just take everything in and just kind of take a moment to relax and not be so stressed about the games and everything so much. I almost wonder if he got too into the idea of coming back to Carolina where he had played and being the head coach, and he looked at the situation. You're going to have a good draft pick, you would assume. At that time, they didn't know they'd have the number one pick, but you like the identity that team had, the finish that they had, and got caught up into that instead of just thinking, you know what, maybe the best thing for me is to just take a year off. And we've seen coaches do that before. Sean Payton did it.
Yep.
And I think if he would have taken that year off, maybe he would have had some renewed ideas. Maybe he goes to a better situation. I don't know if it wasn't Frank Reich, who knows if whoever else they would have hired would have been the right guy anyway either. But I just don't know that Frank was equipped to really get right back into coaching. I think he really did need that mental break because what he went through in Indy was tough. He was going through a quarterback every year.
Yeah. And kind of similar situation in terms of what I'm seeing from their fans. Like I'm seeing Indy fans basically telling Panther fans, what you're going through is why we let him go last year. Like the exact situation that happened in Indy last year is why he lost his job. And you're going through the same thing. And
they're the owner, Jim Irsay, is he's very similar to David Tepper in a way because he's kind of involved, right? He's very loud about his opinions. He may do so more publicly than David Tepper, but I mean, that's two pretty tough owners that he's had to work for over the last 6 or 7 years.
It's that liquid courage. That's what Jim Irsay's on. I just, I mean, we're going to have a lot more time to dissect all this. I do need to get us out of here because Schuyler probably is busy over the next couple of 48 hours or so. So David Tepper is speaking to the media. You said tomorrow morning at 10:30?
Tomorrow, let me double check here. 10:30, David Tepper, followed by Tabor. So
okay, so we normally our normal slot is Tuesdays at 10:30 live. We may try to figure something out tomorrow afternoon, depending on what happens in that press conference. If not, maybe Wednesday. We'll give you a regular episode. But again, this was an emergency episode. I didn't even read the Bet Online thing. It's okay. They'll figure it out. Presented by Bet Online. Bleav in Carolina Panthers. Shout out to Stu, hopped in and out. None of us were prepared for this. Well, we kind of were, but we didn't know for sure it was going to happen today. Normally, Tepper speaks to Frank Reich on Tuesday. So I kind of thought maybe Tuesday would be the day it happened. But I guess he just didn't want him to sit around on his hands all day Monday.
I think, too, if you want to make the change, you have to make it almost on a Monday. If
so
you're playing again. Because you've got to get that all figured out, the coordination of it all, who's taking whatever responsibilities up. So it'll be interesting. I know we're going to get some answers tomorrow from Tepper that a lot of fans aren't going to like. We're going to get a lot of answers about Scott Fitterer, his future, Tabor.
Somebody's going to ask that question. Are you going to be in there? Are you going there?
Yes.
Ask that question. Ask that question about Scott Fitterer.
It'll probably be asked before I can even get a chance to. But yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about that whole thing tomorrow. So
Yeah, we're going to have to figure something out here.
No off season for a second straight year for us here.
No. So we'll leave it there. We'll let you know. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. You'll get a notification for Bleav in Panthers when we're about to put a new one up. I'd imagine we're going to probably try to put another one up before the week is over, just based off of whatever Tepper says and Chris Tabor, the new interim head coach. But Panther fans, you got your wish. Frank Reich no longer the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Panthers 1-10 heading into a flexed game against Tampa Bay on Sunday at 4:00 on Fox. We'll see. I don't know. It's always something. Every year I've done this Bleav in Panther pod, something always happens mid-season where I'm just like, oh, wow, okay, we got something to talk about, but I didn't think it was going to be this. So we'll get out of here. For Jonathan Stewart, for Schuyler Callihan, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been watching and listening to the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks. We'll see you a little bit later on this week. Keep pounding.